I'm welcoming the representative of the press. Welcome. And now we can start the open forum and the live stream. And the first presentation will be the presentation of Dr. BONNAIRE. Please. You all know Dr. BONNAIRE. He's director of the French lab. He's also the chairman of the task force for the certification of labs. We had a lot of questions about the process, how it was going, when people could become a candidate to send us to be a candidate. And so you will be updated by Dr. BONNAIRE. And after that, if you have some general question, we can answer. If you have some question for your own lab, then you go to see him during lunch or during the day. So, Yves, it's up to you. I give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So it's my duty to present an update of the task force as well as the certification process for laboratories. Just a short reminder to describe what is the background, what is the need for IFHA certification. You know that racing laboratories are quite numerous. So far, there are about 60 recognized, AORC recognized laboratories. AORC is Association Official Racing Chemists. And probably there are more than 100 laboratories, even taking into account those who are not recognized at all by AORC. The number of samples tested all around the world every year is quite important. About 520,000 samples, and probably more, are tested every year. You have to know, and it's not secret, that the resources and detecting capabilities of all laboratories are completely different. And of course, this leads to a real lack of harmony between countries. As a result, the horses are not exactly tested the same way. And of course, one of the most important things, the paramount for racing authorities, is that all horses are tested the same way with the same chances to be detected negative or positive. If we have a look at other sports, what happened for equestrian world? You know that the body in charge of regulation is the Fédération Équestre Internationale, the FEI. And the FEI has adopted a long time ago a system which is quite interesting and which works well. All the major events, I mean World Equestrian Games, as well as Olympic Games or international major events, are only tested and controlled by what is called FEI reference laboratories. So far, the number is 5 laboratories all around the world. You have the Laboratory of England, LGC, Laboratory of Australia, one of them, which is ARFL. You have the Hong Kong Jockey Club, the USEF laboratory in America, and finally LCH, the laboratory in France. And these labs are quite well harmonized. I mean that we have different meetings, at least one face-to-face meeting every year in Lausanne. And we have regular communication between labs. And just to give you an example, if a drug is not well known and not listed in our secret list, we have regular communication, and before reporting a positive case on something suspicious, there is a communication between all the 5 labs to get a common agreement on whether the drug should be or should not be reported. So the FEI is willing to expand a bit the number of these reference laboratories, which is not an easy stuff, as you can imagine. And we have set up some sort of program, including proficiency testing samples, on-site assessment, and then new laboratories could be appointed. So this program has run for many years, and there is no dispute. I think this program is running well, and I guess it could be a good example. What about racing? Racing, so far there is no real harmonization. The only program is the one from the Association of Official Racing Chemists, the AORC, and they are circulating proficiency testing every year. And this program exists for quite a long time and has been a bit upgraded, because at the very beginning, only concentrate, I mean small bottles containing some substances, were shared among laboratories. And the lab was supposed to mix up this small bottle in a portion of urine, horse urine. So you can imagine that some labs were directly analyzing the bottle, which is pretty simple. And this system has been upgraded some years after. And now urine, directly spiked urine, is circulated among laboratories. And even recently, this exercise has been a bit upgraded with blood samples, which are shared as well as urine. So far, it does not work too badly, but this is the only thing. Another requirement, but which is true as well for FEI, is the ISO accreditation. You are all familiar with the ISO accreditation. Of course, it's mandatory, but it's not a real recognition of the quality of the testing, the detecting capabilities of laboratories. Just an example, and I know some labs in that case, you could be ISO accredited for the detection, for example, of caffeine, and caffeine only. So what does that mean? Not much. So clearly, there is a need of an harmonized system at the highest level in order to ensure a very efficient testing for major international races. So what do we do? We have done, in 2014, we have created the task force. And this task force, you already know that, I presented the system last year, but this task force is composed by 5 laboratories and 5 directors. And we met on several occasions. We met first in September 2014 during the ICRAF in Mauritius. We met as well in Tampa, Florida in April 2015. And we met face-to-face in December in Hong Kong 2015. So at the same time, we need the support of the IFHA because, of course, the task force is mainly a technical group, so we need clearly the support of the IFHA. This is why, at the same time, was created the IFHA certification committee, which is chaired by Mr. Andrew Harding, and is really helping us especially in terms of administration, to review the documents, to elaborate the documents, in order we can run on a, I would say, a smooth way. What are the progress made? So far, all assessment has been made, among the 5 laboratories. So far, 4 are ready for certification. The last one will be surely finalized, hopefully in November 2016. Then there will be submitted, we need a submission to the certification committee, chaired by Mr. Andrew Harding, and a fantastic diploma, will be circulated to all the laboratories, which is a bit formal, but which is necessary. We need something formal to prove that a lab has been certified. It's a bit maybe stupid, but it's necessary. So we all realize that even if all technical problems has been solved or proposed, we need as well a lot of documentation. Documentation is not the most exciting part of the creation, but it's necessary. And of course, Mr. Andrew Harding could be helpful and will be helpful for the raising of the project. And so far, this white manual do exist. It will be presented to the EXCO, I think, and will be circulated among all task force members as well. And in this white manual, you will find technical as well as administrative matters in one document. And this document, of course, is a living document. It will be upgraded in future and will be the basis of this certification. So what will be the next future? I will not talk you about drugs and so on of this certification program. I did that already last year, so I think you are familiar with the system. So the process in next future will be to expand the number of certified laboratories, because it's clear that 5 laboratories only all around the world is not sufficient. So this program will be proposed to different candidates, and hopefully, we cross the fingers, it will really start in 2017 at the latest. So the process will be as follows. The racing authorities of a candidate lab will has to send an official application to the certification committee, and then this document will include all the prerequisites, I mean what is really necessary to be accepted as a candidate. It's important. There will be success to EORC proficiency testing. There will be a requisite for number of samples tested. There is a need of several EORC members, I mean professional EORC members, at least 2. And there are a list of what is really required to be a credible candidate. Then, after acceptance of this document by the IFHA certification committee, several proficiency testing, PT is proficiency testing, will be sent to these laboratories. It's a system which is more or less the same as the one from the FEI, and depending on results, an assessor will be sent to this laboratory for an on-site assessment. And there is a very important role of these assessors, because there is a risk of conflict of interest. This is why the selection of the experts is extremely important. They should be worldwide recognized as experts. And we found that the retired fellows is a grade, of EORC, including some lab directors, could be a good selection. And so far, we have several candidates for these assessors. Just as example, Professor Ed Hutton from England, or John Vine from Australia, and some others. They are well recognized, which is extremely important because they should not be challenged by other so-called experts. So, when the IFHA will be obtained by candidates, the qualification should be maintained. It's important because it's not a certification forever. I mean that a laboratory should maintain the quality of testing, and to do that, it's not completely definitive, but we program to send several proficiency testing, which will be concentrated on specific drugs, such as the MDA, you remember, the major doping agents, MDA, so-called, as known as well as satanic substances, but I know that Louis Romanet do not like too much this wording. Anyway, it's a category of drugs which is difficult to detect, and most of the time, which are not detected in the routine screening of most of the laboratories. So proficiency testing will be shared among certified laboratories. Firstly, in a single blind mode, that means that the laboratory know that it's a PT. And as soon as possible, we would like to introduce the double-blind system, which is already done among EHSLC countries for EHSLC recognition. And this double-blind is just introducing a sample, a spike sample, or preferably a post-administration sample into the routine system. And of course, we will need clearly the help for official veterinarians in order the sample will be introduced in some sort of secret mode in order that the vigilance of the laboratory will be tested as well as these detecting capabilities. And trust me, the result is completely different. So we will introduce as well a parallel exchange program of negative samples of Group 1 or important international races, which is already done in a different context. But this program is important because sometimes laboratories may develop new methods, new technologies, able to detect new drugs. So the exchange of parallel negative samples is quite important. And every 4 years, probably the number of years is still to be discussed, it's open, but probably every 4 years, we will start again a reassessment of all certified laboratories. So as you can see, it will be a real living process in order to maintain the competence and the credibility of these laboratories. So that's the end of my presentation. Of course, I'm open for discussion if you have any question. So just a recommendation, too much of MDA, you know, the satanic drugs, may affect clearly the performances, so take care. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yves. As you can see, it's a very ambitious program. And very clearly behind that, you have a lot of investment which will have to be made to have a lab which is up to the level we are hoping to have. And one of the important aspects, as it was mentioned by Yves, is of these new drugs who are eliminated very quickly, which means that at the same time, you must have a program of out-of-competition testing developed everywhere around the world. You must, on a permanent basis, test horses if you want to find these drugs. So it's a global approach of really guaranteeing that the horses are free of drugs or drugs which are known and recorded by vets and with a record which is kept by the trainer. So we will make an effort, but clearly in some continents we saw some problems recently with our friend in South America. But it's very clear that for continents like South America, you must be able to find the possibility to have one certified lab. But make no mistake, right now in the world we were discussing with Yves, out of the 60 labs, how many could be certified? Like the 5, say less than 10 probably. And even some very big countries will have some additional investment to make. So the task force will be there to help them. We have, fortunately, we have very good experts. sometime in the not too distant future, Dr. Bonnaire will retire, and so he will be available also to advise the people that will need help, because it's not an easy process. It will not be done in a few months, and you will have to find support. And in those countries where you have good parametric resources, it will be easier than in some others where the revenues are not directly going to the racing authorities or to the industry. So I don't think we started a debate, because then we will be there still in the middle of the afternoon. But Dr. Bonnaire is there, he is available, and you know the name of the 5 members of the task force, and they are all available to help you, and we wish them good luck. And Andrew Harding also will be there as representing IFHA and chairing the certification committee. So our aim is to finalize all the documents before the end of the year, to have the meeting of the certification committee by the end of the year as well, and to be able to officially start the process and plan some visits of the technicians, which will be on our list by next year, by the beginning of next year. So good luck, Yves, and don't hesitate to contact him.
Just a last word. Thank you, Louis, for clarification. I said last year, if you remember, that this program is not only a program to sanction laboratories, but much more to educate them. So it's a real education program, and we are more than happy to help all the lab to raise at the international level. So thank you, Louis.
And just for your information, the global budget which we are spending in France on the lab, so this man cost us 11 million euros per year.
Not only me.
Well, it includes research, testing, analysis. The lab himself is a little more than 7 million, and the program of testing, collecting the samples, and research, because we also do some research on a permanent basis, is a little more than 3 million, about 3.5 million. So it's a global budget of 11 million, which we spend in France on doping control. And it includes dope testing 35 countries. Every time we have a new country coming in, we find a lot of positive. I think the record is 13 different drugs in the same sample. Yeah. If I'm right, 3. So it shows that there is still a lot of work to do around the world to have a level playing field, which is what we are looking for. Thank you, Yves.
Thank you, Louis.
So now we will move to the presentation of Andrew Harding on the relation with OIE and FEI and the development of the International Horse Sports Confederation. I mentioned that earlier on. I think it's a very important objective which we have to work closely with OIE and with FEI. And I will ask Andrew to make his presentation. Andrew.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. My colleague, Dr. Bonnaire, suggested that my contribution to his work is in the non-exciting work of the committee, and and I'm afraid the subject matter that I'm now going to address you on is somewhat dry as well. Indeed, I remember once speaking at a conference in Perth, and the acoustics of the room weren't terribly good, and I made the mistake of asking if everyone could hear me. Someone in the front row put his hand up and said, "I can, but I'd be happy to swap with someone who can't." So this is the ground I'll cover in this section of the agenda. It's helpful to state at the outset the history of the International Federation's interest in this area. And we can start with the proposition, which is held in common by all of the International Federation's members, that the cross-border movement of horses is of material importance to us all. Let's list some of these. Participation by an international field of runners is increasingly important to the branding of a number of the industry signature events. international participation in an international federation members racing has the potential to contribute to domestic media attention and do so considerably and generate public interest and sponsorship. International participation in an international federation members racing has the potential to increase benefits from simulcasting and commingling. Cross-border movements of horses aid international race grading and quality control. Someone said that to me yesterday of Highland Reel. Certainly the travels of that horse helps us in establishing the form across our various jurisdictions. And the cross-border movement of horses contributes to the size and quality of fields, particularly in places like Europe. And let me give you some practical examples. This year, for the first time, France is able to commence taking betting on races which it imports from other countries. But the condition is there must be Japanese runners. And so the international movement... Yes. Oh, Japan. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Japan. Even more recently, in September of this year, the Korea Racing Authority staged 2 major races, the Keeneland Korea Cup and the Keeneland Korea Sprint, with runners from France, I'm correct on this occasion, Great Britain, Hong Kong, Ireland, Japan, Singapore and the United Arab Emirates. Now, these races were part of a broader KRA strategy that now sees it a Part 2 country and simulcasting its races to, at this stage, 4 countries with plans to expand that even further. Now, self-evidently, it's government-to-government approvals for the movement of horses that has made this possible for the KRA. However, there are currently a number of challenges impeding the free and safe international movement of competition horses. These largely stem from inconsistent approaches to the application of health regulations and quarantine, leading to excessive and irregular health requirements for the importation of horses. Examples of this lack of harmonisation include requirements for residency in countries of origin, which vary from 21 to 60 days, definition of the temporary import of a horse. This varies from 30 to 90 days. Vaccination requirements can vary from none to several different vaccines, and the list goes on. The IFHA Vice Chairman, Wilfried Engelbrecht, was allocated portfolio responsibility in this area, and the Executive Council has endorsed his 2-pronged strategy, which in shorthand consists of 1, closer engagement with the FEI, and 2, closer engagement with the OIE. Looking at the first of these, the relationship with the FEI was seen as being key, or more accurately put, the lack of a relationship was seen as a key weakness that had to be addressed. Self-evidently, the organisers of equestrian events and thoroughbred race meetings have similar needs in this area. The top level of competition depends on international participation. However, the FEI had the march on us. It had invested substantially in enhancing the capacity of high-performance horses to move between countries, including through a major public-private partnership with the OIE. By coordinating our respective efforts, the International Federation and the FEI could leverage respective strengths and avoid the risks associated with 2 separate conversations with the OIE. Dialogue with the FEI was begun in March of 2013, and it was agreed that the 2 world bodies should not only engage together on this issue, the movement of horses, but also create a formal vehicle for coordination between the International Federation and the FEI across the range of issues which are common to both sectors. This is the International Horse Sports Confederation, and I'll say something more about this shortly. The OIE, this is the second prong of the strategy, the OIE is recognised by the World Trade Organisation as the intergovernmental body responsible for setting the health standards for international trade in animals. The 2 pillars of free trade in animals are the agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures and the agreement on technical barriers to trade for animal health. Under these agreements, the health standards published by the OIE set limits on the quarantine protocols which member countries can use to protect themselves from the introduction of diseases. Quarantine protocols which go beyond OIE standards will be characterised by the WTO as unjustified barriers to trade. In 2013, it was resolved by the Executive Council that the International Federation should seek to enter into a cooperation agreement with the OIE, just as the FEI had done some years earlier. And some of the this was achieved, and some of the benefits this are outlined here. The agreement's now been in place for 2.5 years. It has enabled participation in the OIE ad hoc advisory committee that was working on the recognition within the OIE code of a high health, high performance subpopulation of horses, staging the series of regional conferences around the world which have brought government veterinary officers together with industry and the OIE to address impediments to the movement of horses. The most recent of these was in Mumbai in January of this year in conjunction with the 36th Asian Racing Conference. Participation in the OIE General Assemblies, assistance with related organisations such as the International Air Transport Association, a full-time project officer to work on OIE International Movement of Horses programs, and a targeted research program to support solutions to horse movement impediments. Now, in terms of this research program, there are a number of projects which have been identified for particular attention. These include the validation of a reverse transcription PCR for equine influenza, validation of a serological diagnostic assay for African horse sickness, validation of a diagnostic serological assay for glanders, and a study related to killed or recombinant vaccines for African horse sickness. We know, in relation to this, that governments are risk averse. They will only make decisions that favour industry in terms of more favourable arrangements for the movement of horses if those decisions are evidence-based. And this research program is essential to the improvements that we wish to achieve going forward. Finally, there's a highly important recent development to note, and the Chairman has touched on this already. At the plenary meeting of the International Horse Sports Confederation held in Hong Kong in December 2015, discussions commenced on substituting the International Horse Sports Confederation as the OIE's single horse industry partner, discontinuing the approach of the International Federation and the FEI, having separate agreements with it. As the Secretary-General and as the Chairman have indicated, this has gained the acceptance of the OIE after having first agreed with the FEI, that's the FEI and the IFHA, on the strategic, financial and administrative elements of a fully integrated and shared approach to achieving progress in relation to the international movement of horses. And the OIE has sanctioned this as well. In doing this, it's, not only is it very favourable to the bottom line of the International Federation, but it will refine our activities and focus them and enable us to achieve even more progress in this very important area. We've been able to do this with the benefit of the 2.5 years of our existing public-private partnership with the OIE. And as I say, the shared funding model is another very important feature of this. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Congratulations for the work done. As you can see, the international movement of horses is still presenting some challenge, and we must do as much as we can to harmonize, to develop, and to the work with OIE. I went to the General Assembly this year, and I made a short speech in front of all the representatives of the veterinary officials from all around the world, and the chairman was from South Africa. He was the head veterinary for South Africa from the official team, and I think if we can make progress for African horse sickness, glanders, and influenza, it will be worthwhile for all the racing community. So now we change completely. We go to the presentation of the next Pan American Conference by Jim Gagliano, Vice Chairman, and Horacio Esposito, the President of LARC, and they will introduce you their next conference. I must say that the first one was a huge success, with on the top of the cake a Triple Crown winner. So I don't know what you are preparing, but I'm sure it will be very exciting.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Andrew. It's always a pleasure to follow your presentation. We're going to briefly pause and move to the entertainment portion of the program. I'm going to ask Shannon to roll a video, and then we'll like to talk about the conference that comes up next year. So I'd like to begin first by thanking everyone who supported the conference last year. It was a great success, and in particular, we want to thank Chris Kay and Martin Panza and their team for putting on a great show on the last day of the event and delivering a Triple Crown winner. We're hoping that we can emulate that in the next conference. We're very excited about this conference being in Washington, D.C. For those of you who have not been there, it's a wonderful American city. It's grown a great deal in the last couple decades. There's great facilities, great entertainment, and the Preakness Stakes will be our feature event at the end of the conference. Those of you who have not had a chance to be at the Preakness, it's a great American sporting spectacle. So as for the conference, in addition to obviously great networking opportunity for all of us to again be together and talk about things of common interest, the business topics that we'll cover will be things such as safety, welfare, and integrity, marketing and development. We hope to have a discussion on modern racetrack improvements. We know that there's some going on here in Paris, and we'd like to see what other parts of the world are considering. And finally, as far as topics, being in Washington, we'd like to discuss how racing and breeding can better work with government and government officials to improve our sport. I'm going to turn it over to Horacio Esposito, who'd like to talk a little bit about the sponsorships and attendance.
Good morning, gentlemen. We would like to encourage all of you to participate in this conference. The brief history of the conference is in 2008-2011, as LARC, we organized 2 conferences in South America to try to establish a much better relationship between North and South. When we established the partnership relationship with the USA Jockey Club was to bring a quality conference in the Americas, and the challenge for us in Washington is to have a very international conference. We need you guys, we need to listen to you, we need to understand you. We cannot continue to listen just to us. We need to listen. This is a global world, different realities in every country, and that's the reason we want to encourage all of you to come to Washington, to listen you and to listen us, and we're trying to have a much better world for racing, for horse racing in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Luis. Congratulations for the 50th anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, and I'm sure Washington is a marvelous city. We will not have a Triple Crown winner because it's only the second leg of the Triple Crown, but I'm sure we will have a marvelous time in Washington.